The War of Art, by Steven Pressfield. Introduction. Have you ever heard the story of Adolf Hitler, the aspiring artist? Before he became the monster the world remembers, he was a young man of 18, living in Vienna. He had a dream. He wanted to be a painter. He even applied to the Academy of Fine Arts, and later, the School of Architecture. But he was rejected. And he never really tried again. He gave up. Now, think about that for a second. The man who would go on to orchestrate a world war, a man who possessed the dark charisma and relentless will to bend a nation to his vision and lead millions to their deaths. That same man could not face a blank canvas. Steven Pressfield, the author of the book we're exploring today, makes a chilling observation about this. He says it was easier for Hitler to start World War II than it was for him to face his art. Why? What is that force that lives inside of us, that stops us dead in our tracks when we try to do something meaningful? You know what I'm talking about. It's that invisible wall you hit when you decide to finally write that book, or start that business, or commit to getting in shape. It's the reason the treadmill you bought with such high hopes ends up as a laundry rack in the corner of your room. It's the reason you quit the diet, skip the meditation, and put off that difficult phone call. It's the silent, insidious enemy that stands between the life you are living and the unlived life that's still inside of you. For decades, this force has been the secret enemy of artists, entrepreneurs, and anyone trying to create something new. But in his brilliant, sharp, and life-changing little book, The War of Art, Steven Pressfield finally gives this enemy a name. He calls it resistance. This book is a modern classic, a secret handshake among creators of all kinds. It's not a gentle guide, it's a battle manual. It's a field guide to understanding the enemy that lives within each of us, and it provides a powerful strategy for defeating it, day after day. My promise to you today is this: by the end of our time together, you will not only understand this invisible enemy that has been holding you back, but you will also have a clear, powerful, and practical battle plan to conquer it. You will learn the one crucial mindset shift that separates the amateur from the professional, and I don't mean professional in terms of money. I mean in terms of power, commitment, and destiny. So, if you've ever felt that pull to do something more, to create, to build, to become the person you know you were meant to be, but something always seems to get in the way, then settle in. Because today, we're going to war. Book Summary. Part 1. Meeting the Enemy. So, what is this thing Pressfield calls resistance? Imagine for a moment that you have two lives. The first is the life you live every day, the one with your job, your chores, your habits. The second is the life you could be living. The unlived life. It's the life where you write the novel, launch the company, record the album, or become the leader you've always dreamed of being. Between those two lives, standing like a guard at a gate, is resistance. Pressfield describes it as the most toxic force on the planet, responsible for more unhappiness than poverty or disease. Because to give in to resistance is to deform our own spirit. It makes us less than who we were born to be. The first thing to understand about this enemy is its nature. To defeat it, you have to know it. First, resistance is invisible. You can't see it, touch it, or hear it. But you can feel it. It's a repelling force, a negative energy field that radiates from any important task. It's that feeling of dread, that sudden urge to check your email or clean the garage when you know you should be working on your big project. Its only goal is to push you away, to distract you, to stop you from doing your work. Second, resistance is internal. This is a hard one to swallow, because it feels like it comes from the outside. We blame our spouse, our kids, our boss. We tell ourselves, I can't write my book because my job is too demanding, or I can't start my business until the kids are grown. But these are just excuses. Resistance arises from within us. It is self-generated and self-perpetuated. It is the enemy within. Third, resistance is insidious. It's a master of deception. It will tell you anything to keep you from your work. It will rationalize, it will bargain, it will flatter you, and it will threaten you. One moment, it's a lawyer, presenting a perfectly logical case for why you should start tomorrow. The next, it's a bully, filling your head with thoughts of failure and humiliation. Resistance is a liar. It is always, as Pressfield says, full of it. And here's one of its most important characteristics: resistance is infallible. Like a compass needle, it always points to your true north. The more important a project is to your soul's evolution, the more resistance you will feel toward it. Think about that. The fear you feel, the procrastination you experience, that's not a sign you should stop. It's a sign that you are pointed in exactly the right direction. Resistance doesn't bother with the trivial. If you're thinking about quitting your job as a humanitarian aid worker to become a telemarketer, resistance will give you a free pass. But if you're thinking of quitting your soul-crushing office job to write your first screenplay, resistance will be there waiting for you every morning, with an army of excuses and fears. You can use this. You can let resistance be your guide. Whatever you're most afraid of, that's what you need to do. Resistance shows up in many disguises. Its favorite, of course, is procrastination. It's the easiest to rationalize. We don't tell ourselves, "I'm never going to write my symphony." We say, "I'm going to write my symphony. I'm just going to start tomorrow." And that tomorrow can stretch into a lifetime, a habit of putting off our lives until our deathbed. Another one of its disguises is trouble. It's so much easier to get attention by creating drama in our lives than by doing the hard, quiet work of finishing a dissertation or building a business. People who are constantly in some kind of soap opera, lurching from one crisis to the next, are often just hooked on a form of resistance. It's more exciting than a movie, and it serves its purpose perfectly. Nobody gets a damn thing done. Resistance also loves criticism. If you find yourself constantly criticizing other people, especially those who are pursuing their dreams, you're likely doing it out of your own resistance. When we see others living their authentic selves, it drives us crazy if we haven't lived out our own. Realized people, people who are doing their work, almost never criticize. They offer encouragement. And then there's the big one: fear. Resistance is fueled by fear. It has no power of its own. It borrows its power from our fear of it. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as a fool. But there's a deeper fear, isn't there? The fear that we will actually succeed. The fear that we might actually possess the talent our inner voice whispers about. The fear that if we step into our power, we will have to leave behind the safety of the person we used to be. We will become estranged from our tribe. This fear is terrifying, because it means we have to become worthy of our own ideals. One of resistance's most clever tricks is to disguise itself as something positive, like seeking support or healing. How many of us say, "I'll start my project once I'm in a better place," or "I need to heal my childhood traumas first"? Pressfield is ruthless here. He says this is just another form of resistance. The belief that we need to be perfect or fully healed before we can do our work is a trap. The athlete never wakes up completely pain-free. He has to learn to play hurt. The part of you that creates is not the part that needs healing. That part is deep, untouchable, and strong. In fact, the more troubles you've had, the richer that part becomes. He tells a story about hitting rock bottom in a tiny New York apartment, after years of running from his work. He finally forced himself to sit at his old typewriter and torture out a few pages of absolute trash, which he immediately threw away. That was it. But then, something shifted. He went to the kitchen and saw 10 days of dirty dishes in the sink. And for some reason, he had the energy to wash them. As he stood there with his hands in the warm, soapy water, he realized he was whistling. He hadn't written anything good. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that he had finally sat down and faced the dragon. He had done his work. And in that moment, he knew he was going to be okay. He had turned a corner. So this is the enemy. It's a shape-shifting, internal, and relentless force of self-sabotage. It's the dragon guarding the treasure of your authentic life. The question is, how do you fight it? Part 2. The battle plan. If resistance is the enemy, then what is the weapon? Pressfield's answer is simple, but profound. The way to defeat resistance is to turn pro. Now, when he says professional, he's not talking about getting paid. It has nothing to do with money or status. It's an attitude, a mindset, a code of conduct. It's the decision to take your calling seriously, to treat it not as a hobby, but as your vocation. The moment an artist turns pro, he says, is as life-changing as the birth of their first child. His own life is divided into two parts, before he turned pro, and after. So what's the difference between an amateur and a pro? The amateur plays for fun. The pro plays for keeps. The amateur is a weekend warrior. The pro is there 7 days a week. The amateur waits for inspiration to strike. The pro knows that inspiration strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp. This comes from a famous story about the writer Somerset Maugham. When asked if he wrote on a schedule or only when inspired, he replied, "I write only when inspiration strikes." Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp. That is a professional. A pro knows that the muse, that magical force of inspiration, favors the working stiff. She rewards the person who shows up. If you build the routine, she will come. Pressfield argues that we are all pros in one area of our lives already, our jobs. Think about it. What do you do at your job? 1. You show up every day. Whether you feel like it or not. You do it to keep from getting fired, but you do it. 2. You show up no matter what. In sickness and in health. You might be miserable, but you're there. 3. You stay on the job all day. Your mind might wander, but your body is at the desk. You don't just go home at 10:30 because you're not feeling it. 4. The stakes are real. It's about survival, feeding your family, paying the rent. 5. You don't over-identify with it. You might take pride in your work, but you know you are not your job description. Now look at how the amateur approaches their art. He doesn't show up every day. He doesn't stay on the job. The stakes feel fake. And most importantly, he over-identifies with his art. He defines himself by it. I am a writer. I am a painter. Resistance loves this, because if your entire identity is wrapped up in your symphony, you will be too terrified of its failure to ever write it. The pro, on the other hand, develops a healthy detachment. He treats his work like a job. A blue-collar, lunch-pail mentality. He shows up, punches the clock, and puts in his hours. He doesn't think about whether his work is good or bad. He doesn't worry about the outcome. All that matters is that he put in his time and fought resistance for another day. Pressfield learned this the hard way. After 17 years of trying and failing to become a writer, he finally got his first professional job writing a movie called King Kong Lives. He and his partner were sure it was a blockbuster. They rented out a restaurant for a massive victory party after the premiere. But nobody came to the movie. The theater was empty. The review in Variety read, We hope these are not their real names, for their parents' sake. He was crushed. He felt like a total failure, a phony whose life was worthless. But then a friend snapped him out of it. He asked, "Are you gonna quit?" Pressfield said, "Hell no." And his friend replied, "Then be happy. You're where you wanted to be. You're in the arena. Stop complaining and be grateful." That was the moment he realized he had become a pro. Not because he'd had a success, but because he'd had a real, spectacular, public failure, and he was ready to get back to work the next day. So what does the life of a pro look like? What are their qualities? A professional is patient. He knows that resistance uses our own enthusiasm against us, tricking us into setting unrealistic timelines that lead to burnout. The pro knows it's the Iditarod, not a 60-yard dash. He settles in for the long haul. A professional acts in the face of fear. The amateur thinks he has to overcome his fear before he can do his work. The pro knows fear can never be overcome. He knows there's no such thing as a fearless warrior. Like Henry Fonda, who threw up from stage fright before every performance his entire life, the pro feels the terror, and then he walks out on stage anyway. A professional accepts no excuses. He knows resistance is like a telemarketer. If you even say hello, you're done. The pro doesn't even pick up the phone. He stays at his desk. A professional does not take failure, or success, personally. This is one of the hardest and most important lessons. The pro cultivates a tough-mindedness that separates his ego from the work. The battle isn't with the critics or the audience. The battle is inside his own head, against resistance. He can't let external opinions, good or bad, fortify his internal enemy. He has a right to his labor, but not to the fruits of his labor. All he can do is leave everything on the field. A professional dedicates himself to mastering technique. He respects his craft. He studies those who came before him. Not because technique is a substitute for inspiration, but because he wants to have the full arsenal of skills ready for when inspiration does arrive. And a professional endures adversity. He lets the bad reviews, the rejections, the humiliations, splash down on his slicker, knowing they'll wash off. His creative core is bulletproof. He keeps his eye on the donut, not the hole. He reminds himself that it's better to be in the arena, getting stomped by the bull, than to be safe in the stands. To help with this, Pressfield suggests a powerful mental model. You incorporate it. Think of yourself as a corporation. You, the artist, are the employee. But you, the CEO of Me Incorporated, are the boss. The boss hires and fires. The boss sets the schedule. The employee might get a swelled head from a good review, but the boss knows how to take him down a peg. The employee might feel crushed by a rejection, but the boss pats him on the back and tells him to get back to work. This separation creates a healthy, professional distance. You're not just you anymore. You're a pro. So why does this work? Why does resistance yield when we turn pro? Because resistance is a bully. And like all bullies, it has no real power of its own. It feeds on our fear. The moment you stand your ground, the moment you decide to become a pro who shows up no matter what, the bully backs down. The pro keeps coming on, day after day. He becomes even more resolute, even more implacable than resistance itself. There's no great mystery to this. Turning pro is not something that happens to you. It's a decision. An act of will. You simply make up your mind to view yourself as a professional, and you do it. Simple as that. But what happens next? What happens on the other side of that decision? When you win the daily battle against resistance, what do you win? This leads us to the final, and most profound, part of the book. Part 3. The reward. When you commit to being a professional, when you sit down every day and do the work, something mysterious starts to happen. Heaven comes to your aid. Unseen forces rally to your cause. This, Pressfield says, is the other secret that real artists know and wannabes don't. Just as there is a destructive force working against us, resistance, there is an equal and opposite creative force working for us. You can call it the muse, you can call it angels, you can call it your genius, or you can think of it as the power of the unconscious mind. The name doesn't matter. What matters is recognizing that these allies exist. The ancients understood this. The Greeks didn't believe creativity came from them. They believed it was breathed into them by the muses, the 9 daughters of Zeus and memory. That's why Homer begins the Odyssey not by boasting of his own talent, but with a prayer. O divine poesy, goddess, daughter of Zeus, sustain for me this song. He is humbly asking for help from a source higher than himself. Pressfield believes there is deep wisdom in this. The act of starting, the commitment to doing the work, is a kind of prayer. It is an act of humility that opens a channel to these higher forces. He quotes the explorer W.H. Murray, who wrote about the Scottish Himalayan expedition, "The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would not otherwise have occurred." When we make a start, a crack appears in the membrane of reality. Angels, as he puts it, congregate around us to assist as we give birth to the person we were born to be. To understand this more deeply, he introduces a psychological model based on the work of Carl Jung. The psyche has 2 main parts, the ego and the self. The ego is the part we think of as I. It's our conscious, everyday mind. Its job is to run the show of our daily life, to keep us safe in the material world. The ego believes that death is real, that we are separate individuals, and that its primary job is self-preservation. The ego likes things just the way they are. It doesn't want to evolve. It is the home of resistance. The self, on the other hand, is a much larger entity. It includes the ego, but it also encompasses the vast, mysterious territory of the unconscious. It's the sphere of the soul. The self believes that death is an illusion, that all beings are connected, and that the supreme emotion is love. The self is our deepest being, and its singular desire is to create, to grow, to evolve. It is the home of the muses and the angels. The creative struggle, the war of art, is the battle between the ego and the self. The ego hates the self. It hates when the writer sits down at the keyboard, or the painter steps before the easel, because it knows these souls are awakening to a call from a higher plane. The ego knows that the more awake we become, the less we need it. So it produces resistance to attack us and keep us small. This brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in the book, the difference between operating from a hierarchy versus a territory. In the animal kingdom, an individual finds its security in one of 2 ways: by its rank in a hierarchy, a pecking order, or by its connection to a territory, a home turf. We humans do the same. The hierarchical orientation is our default setting. We're trained from birth to define ourselves by the opinions of others. High school is the ultimate hierarchy. You know who the cool kids are, who the nerds are, and where you fit. When you live in a hierarchy, you are always looking up at those above you and down at those below you. You compete for rank. Your happiness depends on your status. You ask yourself, what can this person do for me? For an artist, this orientation is fatal. The artist cannot look to others for validation. If you do, you become what Pressfield calls a hack. A hack is a writer who second-guesses his audience. He doesn't ask what's in his own heart, he asks what the market is looking for. He writes what he thinks will sell, not what he believes is true or important. He sold out his muse. The professional, the true artist, must operate from the second orientation, the territorial. What is a territory? A territory is your sacred space, your craft, your work. For Arnold Schwarzenegger, the territory is the gym. For Stevie Wonder, it's the piano. When I sit down to write, I am on my territory. A territory has several unique qualities. First, it provides sustenance. It nourishes you. The swimmer who finishes her laps feels 100 times better than the tired person who dove in. Second, it gives back exactly what you put in. It's a closed loop. You put in effort and love, and the territory gives it back to you as well-being. And third, a territory can only be claimed by work, and it can only be claimed alone. Here is the ultimate test to know if you are operating territorially. If you were the last person on Earth, would you still do it? If there was no one to impress, no one to applaud, no one to buy your work, would you still show up? If Arnold were the last man on Earth, he'd still go to the gym. The sustenance he gets comes from the act itself, not the impression it makes on others. When we do our work from this territorial space, we're not trying to climb a ladder. We are connecting with ourself, with our soul. We align ourselves with those mysterious, heavenly forces that want to bring new life into the world through us. The artist, like a mother, doesn't create the new life. She is the vehicle that bears it. She is a servant of the mystery. In the end, this is the ultimate reward for fighting the war of art. It's not fame or fortune, though those may come. The reward is the connection to this higher realm. It is the profound satisfaction of becoming the vessel through which something new and beautiful enters the world. Our job in this lifetime, Pressfield concludes, is not to shape ourselves into some ideal we imagine we ought to be. It is to find out who we already are, and become it. We are all born with a specific destiny, a unique genius that is ours alone. The war of art is the battle to realize that destiny. And if you don't fight that battle, if you let resistance win, you don't just hurt yourself. You hurt me. You hurt your children. You hurt the planet. You cheat the world of the unique contribution that only you could make. Creative work is not a selfish act. It is a gift to everyone. So, do it or don't do it. But know that the angels are watching. And they want you to win. Commentary. There are thousands of books on productivity, on habits, on creativity. Many of them are fantastic. But the war of art is different. It's less of a book and more of a punch in the gut. Its power lies in its brutal honesty and its profound simplicity. What Steven Pressfield does so brilliantly is that he gives a name to a struggle every single one of us feels but can never quite articulate. That vague, nagging feeling of self-sabotage, that invisible force that pulls us back whenever we try to leap forward, he calls it resistance, and in doing so, he transforms it from an internal failing into a tangible, external enemy. And that changes everything. You can't fight a feeling. But you can fight an enemy. By personifying this force, he gives us permission to see our creative struggle not as a character flaw, but as a noble battle. It's not that you're lazy or undisciplined, it's that you are at war with a powerful, cunning adversary. This reframing is incredibly empowering. It elevates the simple act of sitting down to write, or practice, or build, into an act of heroism. The second reason this book has such a lasting impact is its central idea of turning pro. It cuts through all the noise about finding your passion and waiting for inspiration. The professional doesn't wait. The professional works. The idea that you can just decide to be a pro is revolutionary. It's not something you earn through success, it's a mindset you adopt through commitment. It means you stop treating your dream like a lottery ticket and start treating it like a job. A sacred job, but a job nonetheless. You show up. You put in the hours. You fight. So, how can you apply this today? Here are a few simple, practical actions you can take right now to start your own war of art. First, identify your primary resistance. What is the single most important thing you feel called to do, that you are actively avoiding? Is it a creative project? A business idea? A difficult conversation? A health regimen? Name it. Write it down. That is your primary battlefield. Acknowledge that the fear and procrastination you feel around it are not signs to retreat, but a compass pointing you exactly where you need to go. Second, define your territory. What is the work itself, separate from any outcome? Is it the feeling of your fingers on the keyboard? The smell of paint in your studio? The burn in your muscles at the gym? The quiet focus of meditating? That is your sanctuary. It's the place you go not to get something, but to be something. Your only goal is to spend time in your territory. And third, and this is the most important, be a pro, just for today. Don't think about finishing the novel. Don't worry about building $1 million company. Just show up. Set a timer for 1 hour, or even just 15 minutes. Sit down and do the work. That's it. That's the entire secret. When the time is up, you can walk away. You've won the battle for today. And you get to fight again tomorrow. The war of art is a lifelong campaign, fought one day at a time. There is no final victory, only the daily commitment to show up and face the dragon. But in that daily struggle, you will find a satisfaction and a sense of purpose that no amount of comfort or distraction can ever provide. You will connect with the best part of yourself, and you will bring something into the world that only you can. Give us what you've got. The world is waiting. That was a deep dive into the war of art by Steven Pressfield. We've certainly covered the core principles today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary, no matter how detailed, is like looking at a photograph of a feast. You can see what's on the table, but you can't taste the food. The real power of this book is in the way Pressfield's words hit you, line by line. It's a book you'll want to keep on your desk and read over and over again. If anything we've discussed has sparked something in you, I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can fundamentally change your relationship with your work and your life. The link to the book is waiting for you in the description. Also, if this journey through a powerful idea was valuable to you, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Your support helps us continue this mission of learning and growing together. Thank you for listening.